A very important question that people always want to know the answer to is what their divorce is going to cost. And that's a very, very hard question for any lawyer to answer. And I can just give you some guidance on what leads to higher fees and what makes a divorce less expensive. First, you need to think about the idea that there are court costs involved for filing a divorce, and somebody's going to pay those no matter how easy it is ultimately to resolve the case. The second issue is how complicated are they? If you've got a divorce case where you don't have a lot of complicated assets, maybe you have a house with a mortgage and some cars and some personal property and a 401k, that's a different, less complex divorce when you compare it with a divorce where somebody's got a business and you need to figure out what that business is worth. It also depends on the demands of the parties. You know, people generally think they're being reasonable. And so you might be in a settlement range over here, your spouse might be in a settlement range over here, and if there's no overlap, that tends to lead to more expensive and protracted litigation, costs more, takes longer. If you have children, if you can agree on the custody arrangements for the children, if there aren't a lot of fights about that, that saves you a lot of money. If you're in a situation where you're going to be in court over custody and visitation rights or partial custody rights with your children, that leads to much higher costs. Who the lawyers are also bears on what the costs are, because there are some lawyers that tend to recommend a much more aggressive stance for their clients. And then it costs more because you're always in court, because you can't resolve things more easily. In a lot of divorce cases, experienced practitioners can tell you at the beginning pretty much how things are going to end up at the end. There are ways, after we've done this long enough, that we know the asset split is going to be a certain way, the custody might be a certain way, if there's alimony, it's going to be within a certain range. And if both lawyers are telling both parties, look, this is where you're going to end up, there's no sense in spending a lot of money and a lot of emotional capital fighting over this, that divorce is going to end up getting resolved much more quickly and much less expensive. If people have varying expectations and if they have lawyers who feed into those expectations, it's going to end up getting more expensive and costing more.